ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session, and we will continue on our journey of Mundak Upanishad. Second Mundak, first part. Now we saw in the Mundak Upanishad, in this part, they are actually deliberating or explaining how the universe came into being. What was the process of universe coming into being? Now, this is one of the most fundamental questions in science. They have been debating it for hundreds of years, that how this universe came into being. So we saw in the previous verses, up to verse number 4, that it is one single entity called Brahman, or consciousness, or Paramatma, whatever name we give. From there, everything arose. And then they talked about the five, gross elements, how they came into being from the Supreme Lord. And then they were even explaining that the sun and the moon are his eyes, the directions are his ears, the whole entire universe is his heart, and the earth on which we stand is his feet. So now that is a practically an expression of the Supreme, stating that everything that exists in this universe is nothing but his reflection or his manifestation. So that is where we ended last time. And we also saw in Rig Veda, a similar sort of explanation given to this universe. That universe is nothing but a reflection or a manifestation of the Supreme in the visible, tangible form. Now, let's move further. But before we move further, I wanted to, mention something about my experience in the last 2-3 days. That on the one hand, we go into these precise details of how the universe came into being, what is life, how we can be happy. I was watching a documentary on Ladakh, and I saw how the people are so humble, so down to earth, living totally with nature, contented with themselves, no further desires. On the other hand, I saw something else where everything was, particularly a car factory, where everything was happening with robots. There was no human being available in that factory. Only robots were actually manufacturing vehicles. So I was wondering whether those people who are manufacturing vehicles with robotics, or the people who are living in Ladakh in a very, down-to-earth manner, who is happier? And I came to the conclusion after looking at those people that the people in Ladakh are not stressed, they are contented, they are happy, and they are dancing, they are, under the vast blue sky, they are enjoying the music and the dance, which reminded me of my stay in Mongolia, where you have the canopy of the vast blue sky, and you dance and you sing and you paint. And on the other hand, you confine yourself in that factory where robots are working and you are just supervising, sitting in a small little cell and fully stressed. So this is how the life is. The simpler we are, the more connected we are to the nature, the happier we are. This is what I concluded, but of course others may differ. So here, if we start connecting to the nature, we will find the expression of the Supreme everywhere. And this is what these verses are telling us, that the Supreme is hidden in every aspect of the nature. Whether you look at the sun or the moon or the directions or wind or earth, everywhere the Supreme is hidden. If you go in a garden and look at different flowers and examine those flowers, the beauty of those flowers, you will be amazed. No science can express how this flower has these kind of colors, this kind of shape, this kind of, the fragrance, all those. The beauty cannot be explained. It can be only understood through the human mind. So if we connect ourselves more to the nature, like yesterday I was somewhere and I saw a beautiful bird which I never saw before. And amazing, the creation of the nature is amazing. And that keeps us close to the ground, close to the nature, makes us feel that our creation is just nothing compared to the creation of the nature. And then we feel that, yes, we are nothing, the nature is the supreme, the Almighty is the supreme. And this is what this verse wants to tell us, that everything around us is nothing but the expression of the supreme. And that we saw earlier also in some other verses. So it is the same now. We will continue with verse number 5. उससे ही अग्निदेव प्रकट हुए जिसकी संविदा सूर्य है, सोम से मेघ उत्पन्न हुए, पृथ्वी में नाना प्रकार की औषधियां और औषधियों से वीर्य उत्पन्न हुआ, और वीर्य स्त्री में सिंचन करता है, उससे नई संतानें पैदा हुई, और इसी प्रकार से इस चराचर संसार की उत्पत्ति हुई. Now look at the whole expression, how this world came into being. Now here, what is they talking about? The sun. The sun came out of Agni. Agni is the primary element. Sun is reflection of that, is the biggest reflection of that. Now, the power of the sun is immense. If you look at our own life, we are fully connected with sun all the time. We sleep when the sun sets. We get up when the sun rises. And we eat during the day when the sun is still in the sky. Our digestive system works with the sun's energy. The pranic energy is governed by the sun. We are able to see because of the sun. If the sun disappears, we can't even see. The temperature is governed by the sun. The seasons are governed by the sun. The water cycle is governed by the sun. The wind cycle is governed by the sun. So everything in our life, which happens on day-to-day basis, is controlled by sun. When we go from one place to another in a different time zone, we say it is jet lag. Now, what is jet lag? Jet lag is nothing but disruption of the sun's alignment with our body. Our body is used to the alignment of the sun, the time of rising, getting up, the time of sleeping, time of eating. Now that alignment gets disturbed, and that is called jet lag. It takes several days to adjust. So that adjustment is the adjustment with the cycle of the sun. We again realign our body with the cycle of the sun, and then the jet lag disappears. So This sun is approximately 15 crore kilometers away. From that distance, it is governing our life. So here, what is it saying here? That the sun came into being from the Agni. Agni was one of the 5 elements which was mentioned in the previous verses. And from the sun, what came? There came the heat. And from the heat, मेघ उत्पन्न हुए. सोमात पर्जन्य, सोमात पर्जन्य, तस्मात अग्नि तस्य समधि सूर्य सोमात पर्जन्य. That from that heat of the sun, the water rose from the oceans, and then the clouds were formed. And from the clouds, the rain happened. And because of the rain, then what it says? Prativyam osdhaya. There were thousands of different varieties of osdhi or vanaspati or plants and herbs were born on the earth. Now, it is not only because of the rainfall, but also the heat of the sun makes the earth fertile. The fertility of the earth comes from the heat of the sun. And then that fertility turns into vegetation because of the rainfall. If there's no rainfall, then it turns into desert. But in places where there's not enough heat, the earth does not become fertile. Like we can see in the, northern, what you call Arctic region and the southern Arctic region, where sun rays are not enough, the earth is not very fertile, and therefore there's no fertility there in the earth. And as a result, the life does not exist in those parts, except in a very, very, rare form. So this is what it is saying, that the one of the elements which came from the sun was Agni. The visible form of Agni is the sun. The sun, because of the heat of the sun, the water rose in the sky, clouds were formed, and then the rain took place, and because of the rain, all kinds of vegetation happened on the earth. Now, this vegetation is actually called in Vedic language Osdhi, because every vegetation, every form of vegetable or herb has certain curative or nutritive value which is adding to our body system, or not only our, but all other living forms. So because of that, it is called Osdhi, because it is adding nutrition to the living beings and their bodies and keeping them alive. If that process doesn't happen, then we cannot remain alive. And that is why it is called Osdhi. In other, Vedic literature also, the plants and vegetation is called Osdhi. And from the Osdhi, what we do, we eat the food. From the food, the blood is formed, juices are formed, our flesh is formed, our bones are formed, our majja, that is, the joints, the forms, those are formed. Our skin is formed. And the last element which is formed from the food we eat is the vidya, is the semen. Now, semen is a reproductive element. And because of that semen, and the same in the women, the Raj, we call it Raj, because of that, reproduction happens. And then the, new generation comes into being in all forms of life, not only humans, but you can talk about all animals and fish and birds, whatever forms are in existence, the living beings, they all have that, what you call, the capacity to reproduce because of this. So the food is the element which actually works behind it, which keeps us alive, which sustains our life. And gives us the power to reproduce. So this is what it is saying, that because of this, what it says, that all these things arose from that Parampurus, from the same supreme being, Parampurus, Paramatma. All these arose, it is different manifestations of the same energy. And because of that, this whole universe came into being. So this is the explanation given in this particular mantra of how the life comes into being. Before that, we have seen mantra number 3, 4. In that also it was explained how the 5 elements were formed and how the various directions, the various planets came into being into this universe. So these mantras are addressing some of the most fundamental signs of this universe, that how that one single being manifested itself in so many different forms. All this multiplicity arose from one single entity. Like you have clay, from the clay you can make millions of different shapes and forms. Similarly, that same energy of the Supreme converted into variety of ways, giving birth to this whole universe and whatever we see in this universe. Then verse number 6. उस परमेश्वर से ही ऋग्वेद की ऋचाएं, सामवेद के मंत्र, यजुर्वेद की श्रुतियां, दीक्षा तथा समस्त यज्ञ क्रतु एवं दक्षिणाएं तथा संवत्सर रूप काल यजमान और सब लोक उत्पन्न हुए, जहां चंद्रमा प्रकाश फैलाता है और जहां सूर्य प्रकाश देता है. Now you see, it is further explanation. From the same Parmeshwar, Tasmat, rich, from the same universal consciousness, from the same element, all the knowledge came into being. Rich Ved ki richaएं, Sam Ved ke mantra, Yajur Ved ki श्रुतियां. This is a reference to the knowledge. Ved is knowledge. All the knowledge comes from there. That is why one of the Upanishads calls Prajnanam Brahman, that Brahma is knowledge. All the thing which we know is Brahma. So here, all this knowledge, whether it is enshrined in Rigved, Samved, Yajurved, it all came from the same source. That is the only source of all knowledge that exists in the universe. Then it talks about Diksha Yagya Kratav. Now, Diksha is basically, to take a vow, to dedicate yourself to a particular variety of life where you are dedicating to the Supreme and you are not getting involved into the world anymore, worldly activities. And then you perform Yagya. Now, this word Yagya, I think we need to understand it a little better. Yagya and Kratu. Kratu is the karma, the action we perform. From that knowledge, the knowledge which is enshrined in these scriptures, from there the Diksha came. Diksha means basically the people who turned toward the Supreme. They wanted to discover what is the Supreme, how this whole universe works. So that is the purpose of Diksha. Now Yagya and Krat. Yagya we perform and Krat, karma we do, actions we perform. Now these Yagya and karma we perform because of the knowledge. We get this knowledge from our ancestors, from the scriptures, from our colleagues, and then we perform Yagya and Karma. Karma we all know. Karma is basically action dedicated to achieve something, normally to achieve something. There may be karma without expectation, but generally, whatever we perform, we have some object in mind. Okay, I want to contest this election because I want to, become member of the parliament. So you take that action. Like somebody wants to become an industrialist, so he decides to do the investment, set up a factory, what you call collect capital, put together human resources, and set up a production unit. So that is the karma. Karma gives you what you call the return. It is whatever action has, it has its reaction in proportionate and the opposite form. So this is karma is very clear. Now yajna is something which we have to understand. We understood this little bit earlier in the form of karma kant. But yajna is not only a karma kant. Yajna is not only sitting in front of the fire and then putting the havis in the agni. That is one form of yajna, where you think about a particular divine power and you want to, pray to him that whatever I am putting in this agni, it will reach you and you will give me in return, good health and prosperity or whatever you want. So that is one form of yajna. But yajna has multiple dimensions. In every part of our life, we have yajna. Yajna basically means that the heat and the cool, that is Som and Agni. Som and Agni Tattva, they come together. And then the yajna is formed. Like when with the heat of the sun, water rises. Now that cool water, that is the Som, is heated with the fire of sun. And then it rises. So it is yajna. The formation of clouds is a process of yajna, where the Som and the Agni Tattva, they come together and the clouds are formed. When the clouds are in the sky and the condensation process is again yajna, where a particular temperature, the particular combination of the heat and cooling process results into bursting of the clouds and the rain and the snow starts. So this is a yajna. That process is yajna. Now, for example, you are playing football. Now, in football, you are running, your heat, your body heat is working. And then you have to use your cool when to hit the ball in the goal and how to take it there and how to hit. Now, that cool and heat results into a yajna. Similarly, in our daily life at home, the combination of heat and the cool, the Som and Agni, that is responsible for cooking of our food, for making of our clothes, for managing our body in the house. Everything we do is this combination. The heat and the cool, the Som and the Agni Tattva, they combine in certain way. Even the reproduction is also the same process, where the heat and the cooling process combine and then the reproduction happens. So all this, in this universe, this constant process of yajna happening, and because of that yajna, variety of activities are happening. So this verse is telling us that this knowledge came from the Supreme first in the form of Vedas, knowledge. And from that knowledge, Diksha came, from that knowledge, Yajna came, from that knowledge, Karma came. Karma also came into being from that knowledge. And Dakshina is basically to be grateful, to the person who is helping you, and therefore you perform dakshina. So, and then samvatsar roop kal, yajman, lok utpann hue. Now these words which are used here, yajman and samvatsar, these are ancient words used in Sanskrit to describe the functioning of the universe. And these words are not fully understood in today's context. But basically, Yajman is the person who is performing the yajna, who is, the couple sits on one side of the fire and he keeps putting the, havan samagri into the fire. And that is called Yajman. So he is nimit, he is the person who is doing this, performance to so that the harvest reaches the divine power. So these words are basically in the context of how the karmas are performed in the universe. And then it says lokas utpanna, all the lok, all the what you call different worlds, because it is said, it has been explained in many scriptures, that earth is not the only lok. We talk about, some scriptures talk about 3 lok, some talks about 7 lok, some talks about 10 lok, 10 lokaj. But basically, the 3 are visible. 3 we can see. Khachar, Jalchar, and Prithvichar, Bhumichar. So the one lok is on the earth on which we walk. Another is Khachar in the sky where the birds fly. And the third one is in the ocean where the fish and other marine life lives. These are visible to us. We can see them, the 3 lokas. But then there are variety of other loks in other planets. And it is said that one Brahman constitutes 10 lok and a full system of planets. And then there's another Brahman which constitutes similar kind of 10 loks and another system of planets. Now, we don't have to go into those details, how many Brahmans are there, but naturally, even modern science today accepts that there are so many planets where the life exists. And this life comes into being in this process. This process, let me go from the beginning till end, till now, so that we get a clarity. The first process is that how from the avyakt, from the non-manifest, from the supreme, how the 5 gross elements come into being. From those 5 gross elements, the sun element, is more prominent because it makes them work. And that element is responsible for what we call creating of clouds, rainfall, fertility on the earth, then, all kinds of vegetation which happens. And the vegetation which we eat in our body, it is responsible for reproductive, not only humans, but all other animals, they eat the vegetation. That is called anna. And that anna forms the reproductive material. And then the reproduction happens and more population, age coming into existence because of that. And simultaneously, another process comes into being, which is the process of knowledge, where the Ved comes into place. Ved means knowledge. Rig Ved, Samved, Atharvaveda. These are only the 3, what we call books, but all the knowledge is Ved. So the Ved means knowledge comes into being. And because of the knowledge, these processes happen. That some people dedicate themselves to the supreme, some people perform yajna, some people perform karma, and because of all these karmas and yagyas which are happening, new and new outcomes happen. When we perform a karma, an outcome happens. When you perform a yajna, some outcome happens. So all these proliferation of activities in this world takes place because of this process. And that is how this universe is run. This is what this verse number, this mantra number 6 is telling us. So this is how it has been explained so far. Now we go to mantra number 7. तथा उसी परमेश्वर से अनेक भेदों वाले देवता लोग उत्पन्न हुए, साध्यगण, मनुष्य, पशु पक्षी, प्राण, अपान वायु, धान, जो आदि अन्न तथा तप, श्रद्धा, सत्य, ब्रह्मचर्य एवं यज्ञ आदि के अनुष्ठान उत्पन्न हुए. Now it is further explaining in this mantra 7 that from the same supreme power, from the same single, eternal force, all variety of human beings are only one variety. Okay, there is a Devtagan, the divine powers came into being. The divine powers we can call the sun, the moon, the Varun, all those divine powers, the Indraj. Those are divine powers which are not visible, but they perform, different things in this universe which make this universe run. If a galaxy is running, for example, there's a galaxy, there's a solar system which is running because of some divine power. We don't run that solar system. We don't make the sun rotate or revolve. We don't make the moon rotate or revolve. We don't make other planets in the solar system run or revolve. We don't change their axis. Similarly, the whole galaxy operates. There are so many systems in the galaxy. There's a what we call Gurutwakarshan, or the power of attracting, like Earth is attracting things up to a particular point towards itself. So when you go up, you come back. But beyond a particular point, you don't come back to the Earth. It is, you are taken back into the space. So all these powers which are operating, if you go to a physics book and look, there would be thousands and thousands of rules governing this universe, how this universe is run. The sun alone will be governed by thousands of rules. Now we are talking about global warming. We feel that one particular element, that excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, can cause all this imbalance. This alone can cause the heat in the raising of the temperatures on the earth. And then that raising of the temperatures can cause, disasters. The islands can disappear, the rivers can disappear, the ice can melt, the water cycle can disappear. All those things are so interconnected. There are so many systems in this universe. So all those systems, we don't create. Those systems were created by the same energy which constituted this universe. And that is what this mantra is saying, that from that energy, the divine powers came. So these divine powers are regulating this universe. Those are invisible powers which we do not see them physically, but those powers are responsible for running the universe. Once we disturb the balance of those powers, then this universe, at least the life on the universe, will also get disturbed, and maybe the life will come to an end. It can become an extinct. It must have happened in the past, and it will happen in the future as well, because the human being is very greedy. He doesn't understand all these complications, and he acts according to his own greed, according to his own desire. And that is what we are doing. We are creating, all this, what we call global warming, because these warming gases are coming into into existence because of the excessive consumption we have and excessive exploitation of the earth. So that process is mentioned here. Then they talk about sadhyagan. Sadhyagan are those people, balanced and wise people, who keep advising others to behave in a responsible fashion. So that sadhyagan came into being. Then manushya, people, normal human beings like us, came into being. And then even in our own category, we see different varieties of human beings. Some people are somewhat higher, in their thinking, somewhat lower, then again lower, again lower. You find uh, different grades of consciousness even amongst human beings. Then Pasu Pakshi, Vayansi, Paswa Vayansi, Pasu and Pakshi came into being. And then it talks about Pran and Apan Vayu. Pran, Apan Vayu, though Vayus are of 5 different nature, actually 10, and they are called Uppran, 5 Uppran and 5 Pran. So 5 Pran Vayu is the main pranic energy, is the breath we take in and out. That is the Mukhya Pran. Then Saman Pran, which takes our food inside, water, whatever we drink inside, and helps in digestive process. And then Apan Pran, which takes the waste out, which also energizes our, reproductive system. And then the Vyan Pran, which takes the energy into every single particle of our body. And Udan Pran, which takes everything away when we die. But Pran and Apan are constantly operating in our body because we take the breath in, which is Pran, and then we take the breath out, which is Apan. In and out, this process keeps us alive. This is not only amongst human beings, but in all species of life. So this is Pran and Apan. This comes into being because of the sun energy. There's a different analysis given, different science explained about this in Prashna Upanishad. So the Pran and Apan came into being. Then it says Dhan, Jo, Adi, and all kinds of, food, not only the vanaspati, not only the osti, but the grains also come into being. Apart from the vegetables and fruits, the grains also come into being because of him. And then Tap and Shraddha. Tap and Shraddha come into being. Tap is what? That we are ready to take some sufferings for a particular cause. That is tap. For example, you want to tell the truth, and because of that you will be suffering, because somebody might kill you or you might be imprisoned because of that, but you are ready to do that. So that is tap. So the people who are ready to suffer for a cause, that is tap. And then Shraddha, that you develop respect to the Supreme. You develop not really respect, it is surrender to the Supreme. That Supreme is the one which is, guiding the whole. So these kind of sentiments come into human being because of that. And the brahmacharya and other forms of anushthan, other forms of, rituals come into being. So these verses up to verse number 7, mantra number 7, we have been told by this Upanishad how this universe come into being, the physical format, the living format, and the active format, the action, reaction, interaction, how this happens, how the regulatory framework of this universe come into being. All that has been explained in these mantras so far. So this part of this Upanishad is dedicated to explanation of how this world came into being, how it is run, how we are interacting, and how these lokas are formed, how action reaction happens, how different sentiments and thought processes come into being, how the knowledge came into being. All these things have been explained in these mantras. So thank you very much. And if you have any queries, we can discuss. Thank you.